Okay, so I decided to do this in video format instead of written format, because unlike the pictures that we talked about, this is not really based on composition. It's based on movement and editing, so it's really hard to analyze through stills. So I'd rather analyze it through moving images. So I hope I hope this will work. This will not be too boring. Um, anyways, I I haven't seen, so we didn't get any behind the scenes footage yet, except some pictures, and I haven't seen any video, like reaction or review video, that did any technical breakdown. So for now, everything I'm going to say might possibly be speculation, and might be completely proven wrong once we get behind the scenes footage. But I'd say I'm fairly I'm fairly confident about the blockings that I found, because training. And I also asked my brother, and he agreed with most of what I said. So I feel pretty confident, but again, it might be proven wrong. Now, I've seen some people talk about the simplicity of the music video, and I'm gonna have to disagree with those people. The music video looks simple, but in terms of technicality, it is not simple at all. If you compare it to a video like Lullaby, Lullaby looks very busy in terms of shots, in terms of visual effects, and the colors and everything, but it's actually pretty easy in terms of blocking. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There's no real big setup and camera movements. It's mostly green screen as well. Whereas Breath actually bases most of its setup on long take techniques, which are not that simple to execute, unlike what most film students think. It's a popular gimmick. Now, before I get into Breath, my brother recommended this, which I think might help understand the blocking, because I've had to break down the blocking. So this is the simple version of what Breath does. So if you look here, there's a rail, and the green screen is moving, and there are marks that are very precise on the floor, and the actor has to be precisely on the marks so that it matches with the background that is inserted in the green screen. And if you can also see that the lighting changes, like for example here, you can see that the lighting crew is moving the lights to match what it's supposed to give on the green screen. So this sort of stuff is heavily choreographed, and this is mostly green screen, while Breath mostly uses, sets and cuts rather than green screen, but it uses some green screen, so I think it's interesting to see that you have the rotoscopy that is involved to insert him in the green screen. Now, this is quite popular because it's quite popular today, because if you look at him, there's no cuts on him, and all the cuts are in the background, and the principle of long take is to hide the cuts. And actually, though Breath is not a long take music video, it does not try to be a long take. It actually uses a lot of long takes techniques. It's kind of almost a masterclass in terms of editing and cuts. And the other thing I wanted to show was that actually it's not an homage, because it's way too basic to be an homage, but long takes. Now, if you look at a movie like 1917, sorry, if you look at a movie like 1917 or Birdman, the idea, like with digital editing and CGI, it's really easy now to hide the cuts. But back when, because digital cameras can shoot for a long time, and we have CGI, but back in the day, you had to find other ways, because film cameras, you had to change the roll pretty much every 8 minutes, because the length was limited, the length of film. So you had to find other ways. So the rope is the most famous old long take movie, and so this is the most basic type of cut. So black to black, dun, dun. So if you look, if you break it down a bit more simply, here you are on one take. Once it fills, you actually see the cut, and then you have another take. Now, sorry, this looks really basic, but it's not. I've seen a lot of people try it in film school, and it's not that easy because the two most common mistakes are the fact that sometimes the object that is supposed to mask the camera does not completely mask, so you actually see the cut because you have a piece of the frame that is not masked, or the two blacks of the two takes are not the same shade, they're not the same type of black, and so you actually see the cut in the color. Now, this was a long tangent, but this will actually be relevant later. Now, this is what I believe to be the blocking of the breath music video. Now, I apologize, I did not do this in the proper software, so it looks ugly, but this is the set. You have the stairs with the ball station, the phone booth, the door that Jin Young opens at some point, and the bench that Jackson sits on the end. So it's very narrow, it's a street, it's pretty much a street. Very narrow, very horizontal, there's not a lot of Z-line movements, mostly is left to right. I was able to identify 3 blockings that I'm sure of. So the first one here is, so I put a rail, I'm not sure it's a rail in my but it possibly is. So it follows the length of the set as they walk by, and it goes back and forth. There's another one where it goes backwards and forward, backward and forward, probably a Steadicam shot. So left and right, back and forth, and this one is a pan on Jackson and Mark at the end. So it's a left to right and right to left pan. So with these shots that we can identify, we can easily also identify a 180-degree line, which means that all the cameras are on this side, and the only side that we actually see is this side. That creates the effect of a fourth wall which is here, where the staff and also the lighting is all hidden. And that gives the impression that it's a stage, it's very musical-like. Really reminds me of Singing in the Rain. If you've seen the movie, there's a scene where they sing a song that's called You Were Meant for Me. Now, I couldn't find the proper scene, but before they start singing, there's a scene that looks pretty much exactly like Breath, the music video. Now, I'm gonna get into the shot-by-shot analysis, but I really wanted to emphasize this idea that it looks like a stage because I think it's actually relevant, this musical aspect. Hello, I got a message. Now, so any movie analysis will tell you that the most important frames of any movie, or in this case video, are the opening and ending shots. So in this case, they're the same one, they're continuing off from each other, which is what we call a bookends framing device. In this case, it's actually really interesting because it's a museum. So we enter every picture. Now, again, I'm gonna speculate on this because since we saw that this is connected to the last piece video, I might be getting ahead of myself. But again, it looks like when we get into a picture, we're gonna have a story, almost like a chapter that has a beginning and end. and hence the book ends. Like, and then once the story ends, in this case the breath story ends, we go back to the main menu, you know, almost like on chapter menus in DVDs. Yeah. So, which actually fits the idea of a long take, because a long take is pretty much a story that is told in real time, kind of like theater. Anyways, here is cut. So in this case, the painting is blocking the camera like in Rope, and here we cut. And we go to what I don't know if it's an exterior set with a green screen or if it's a soundstage set. The lighting comes from above and is very, very bright here, as you can see, but creates a lot of shadows. So I'm going to assume it's artificial lighting and that this is on the soundstage, but I might be wrong, because it could possibly also be like in Avengers where they are actually outside but on a green screen. Now, this is a CGI cut. But it's a cut. This is not a long take. This is not a green screen cut as well, like we saw in the Join Lucas video. So this thing is CGI. Actually, my brother said it's actually a pretty basic After Effects plugin. We don't really have an explanation, but I assume that this is meant to be a representation, like a physical representation of breath, of breathing. That's my interpretation, but we have to see with behind the scenes explanations. So as you can see right now, we can still see him, and this is and the fake, like the CGI sheet, is covering completely the entire frame. Actually, I'm going to zoom in. It's covering the entire frame, and at some point it becomes completely opaque right before this appears, and it is used to mask the cut. So as soon as it becomes opaque, there's a cut, and then we move to a different set. So he's not on a green screen. Now here is our first blocking. What I meant, this is a keyframe dolly, because the movement is a bit too smooth to be done. So keyframed is basically, it's action by a remote control instead of a cameraman. So they insert keyframes when it's supposed to hit a mark at a certain time. So yeah, what is interesting about the composition of this shot actually is that, so his mark is far from the camera, Yogim's mark is closer, and then everybody who's gonna come in has a mark that's much closer to the camera. Also, all of these things, like the papers and everything, all of this is CGI. And now there's a pan, there's a tilt up, and see, his blocking is closer to the camera. His mark, sorry. Anyways, yeah, I was looking at my notes, but the camera then tilts up, so you can see that it's straight on Yugim. I mean straight. It's head level, normal level, straight level, ground level, I don't know. And then it tilts up and we see more of the sky to hit on Youngjae, like this. Also, this is natural light, you can tell, because the light is extremely strong. You can see it on him. No diffusion, because this is very sharp in terms of, you know, the shadow is very defined, even here and here, which is bright daylight types of natural lighting. This is a cut. This is not anything but a cut, as you can see. Boom! He's not in the same position. So this was not CGI, this was not green screen. he is actually in two different places, and the cut is matching on the movement, which is not exactly the same, but he moves his hands and we match cut with his movement. Now, I was not sure if this is CGI or not, but I'll tell you later. I think it's an actual thing that exists, and this is CGI. See, again, another cut. He's not doing the exact same movement. So again, this is not green screen. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the normal speed. And this is green screen though. This is a rotoscopy cut. So someone is coming in front of the camera, probably on a green screen, as you can see. There. Up. And the rotoscopy is cutting him out. And this is added on the green screen, and the other frame is added on the other side of the green screen with a different mask, which creates a CGI transition. Anyways, back to normal speed. I'm gonna do this a lot, I apologize. Okay. Back to this thing. I don't know, this could be a 3D transition of, since this takes the entire frame, you can actually replace it with a white mask on After Effects and then create a 3D mask that you pull down like this and see, and you insert it over the JB shot. I think, given this light, again, that is possibly a soundstage, a studio. This is not a camera movement. I'll show you why, but this is, again, editing. Why? If it was a camera movement, it would look way more organic, and this is going to look extremely vertical. So basically the frame is just pulled down. There's no tilt, there's not anything. Again, I could be wrong. There's still the possibility that I could be wrong. But I'm gonna slow it down a lot more, and you're gonna see that there is no camera, that this is just the mask that is being pulled down to another black mask. And there was a fade to black. And so I believe this is an organic camera movement, because you see that the pan down has different speeds. So it's probably a person actually doing this pan down from the sky to Mark. And so, something I noticed, for this whole section, they actually directed the entrances and exits. Everyone comes in from this side, and everyone exits from this side, which is meant to be, which is normally you always have to direct the entrances and exits from frame so that they're always coherent. So in this case, that's what they do, but in movies, it's mainly so that they match in editing. Sorry, talking a lot, so my throat is getting sore. But it also gives, again, a very stage-like feel. And so here you can see the center frame. And also, something that I noticed is that in this section, then they're gonna change, but in this section, coming in from the left and going to the right, exiting from the right, follows in Western culture. In Western culture, since we read from left to right, usually movement is also directed from left to right to indicate going forward, because when we read, we advance by going towards the right. In classical cinema, going from the right, in Western classical cinema, going from the right to the left indicates going backwards, and it implies a sense of doom. It's a tangent, it has nothing to do with this. So, there's this light, I don't know if you can tell. I think this might be Steadicam, but because there's a slide floating going on. So I believe this is not Dolly, but Steadicam. Again, he came in from the right, while from the left, while Bam Bam exited from the right. Again, this is a match cut on movement, and not a green screen. Someone hit the camera, you can see that it shakes a bit. So it's organic. Did you see the cut? See, he was not doing the exact same movement. Now, back to normal speed. This is where I believe that this is actually a real thing that exists, this white thing. Because look at those shadows. So I believe that the light is coming from this side again. There's no light coming from this side. So it creates shadows that are way too precise to be fake. But I might be wrong. Now, I have a problem with this lighting. So I'm gonna run for a second. As you can see, the light comes from the side of, from this side, because the shadow is here. So the light is hitting him from this side. It's very stage-like feel. Again, it might be used to imply the idea that this is kind of a theater setting. But my issue with this is purely aesthetic. It's actually, there's nothing wrong with it. But his hair is black. His jacket is black. It's not the same black because it's being hit by the light, which suggests that the black might be green screen. But it's missing a backlight for me. I like backlights. It would have given an edge light to his hair and to his jacket, which would have made him, you know, stand out more against the background. This looks a bit flat in terms of lighting. Again, it's just a preference, but I wish there was an edge light. On JB as well. This was my favorite part. This is definitely my favorite part of the entire music video. I'm gonna slow it down to exactly show you why. Because usually the simple thing, because there's 3 cuts, would have been to cut from Yugim to JB to Yugim to JB. But instead, they made the cuts in the background, which means that it's CGI. Look, boom, first shot. There's also motion blur, probably to emphasize, to make it more impactful. Okay, so basically they build the set behind him, which is really cool. So they add this part against the on the mask. So this is After Effects. And they add the second part. So it's 1, 2, 3 is JB, and 4 is completing the background. So in this case, I think he is standing against a green screen because the background is added later, and if he was not standing on a green screen, that means the editor would have to, you know, cut him out of this background, which is very busy and it's white on white, so this would have been a really difficult job. So I believe that it has to be green screen, otherwise this would have been a nightmare. Anyways, this was my favorite part. Back to normal speed. I hope there's no background noise. These people coming in. Well, I did not add this in the blocking, but this is a traveling shot, backwards traveling shot. Fairly obvious cut. I don't think I need to slow it down. It's very obvious with the thing. Again, this might be CGI because a green screen because of the white thing coming from the background, but it could also be a really good masking CGI job. Again, this was a rotoscopy cut, so it's actually fairly well hidden this time. So it's really hard to see, but basically they cut when his jacket completely blocks the camera, see, and then they cut out the side of his jacket to as a mask here to appear on this shot of the object. His hair being lighter than JB's in your games make him stand out a bit more against the black background, but again, I'm missing an edge light for my personal taste. And again, as I mentioned before, this is not a camera movement. So they do it twice. And they match cut, well, not match cut, they cut again to a pan down from the sky on Mark. So it's a mirror effect, I guess. See, boom, and Mark again. So I'm gonna assume it's not repetition and it's a stylistic choice. The bench. Do I have anything to say about this? No, except again, you can tell this is natural lighting because of those shadows. Like this, you can tell it's natural lighting because the background is lit just as much as Jackson. In studio lights, you want either the background to have more light than the subject or the subject to have more light than the background so that they can stand out against each other. In this case, everything is lit in a very uniform way, so it's natural light or, again, electricity bill. So, there's a match cut on the movement in the pan. It's pretty clean, pretty classic as well, but you can see that they cut in the middle of the panning. And that's probably maybe a morphing effect so that they blend into each other. And they're gonna do it again. Since he's at night, the night lighting is artificial though, because this is too white for this to not be artificial, and also because if it was not artificial, it would be much darker, since it's really hard to shoot at night. And they're using, it looks like they're trying to fake that it's lit by this, by the street lights, but it's actually lit by artificial stage lights. But they make them come from the top, so you see the shadows are under his eyes, so they make the light come from above so that it looks like it's a street light. It's a fairly common technique. And again, it's very clean. Honestly, this is one of the cleanest cuts that they do. Whereas this one is not so clean. It's one of my least favorite cuts because, well, it's meant to look like he appears, but if you slow it down, it doesn't really, it matches, but also doesn't match too much with the background. I don't know if it's the lighting change, I don't know if it's because they changed the lens, but it doesn't really match. I mean, it matches in the movement, so it's not that they changed the lens, it's just that it's probably a bit awkward with the lighting. It's not a bad thing. It's quite clean. This is pretty clean as well. This is just a cut. This is not clean though. Why? Because Jin Young did not do the same head movement, so you can't match cut on the movement, which can be made intentional so that it looks more impactful. But see, he's looking at the camera and then he's not looking at the camera, so it's not a match cut. So it's not the cleanest thing. This was very clean though, because This has to be choreographed, so it's actually probably that he was supposed to look at the camera and then in the text, the text did not match. Because see, here he's looking in the right. It looks like it doesn't match, but it's made on purpose. You will always have to cut some part because 24 frames per second. It's to give the illusion our eyes actually don't like when it matches perfectly. Yep. Oh, it cut on the on the cut that I don't like. So there's only one shot that I don't like, and it's this one. Why is it empty? It looks so dull and flat and unimpactful, whereas in the rest they add the CGI sheet. I don't know why this is empty. This actually bothered me the first time I watched the music video. I don't know why they chose to put an empty shot in this. I don't know. I don't like it, but they probably have a justification. See? Okay, so I think it's not cutting between 2 shots, but it's cutting between 4 shots. Why? Because of this. Look, the lighting doesn't change, but the extras appear and disappear. So I think there's 2 day shots, one with just the members and one with the members and the extras, and 2 night shots, one with just the members and one with the members and the extras. Because here, sorry, you see, just the members, no extras, and then still a night shot, but the extras appear and disappear. So it's actually 4 shots and not 2 shots. Now, on this cut, they added a sort of morphing effect, if you look. 2 explanations. Either they wanted to make it more impactful, kind of like, you know, using pyrotechnics, or like a flash, so that the beat is emphasized, or because JB doesn't do the right position. Like, see, he's turning around again. Because the position doesn't match, it's not synchronized on the beat properly, it probably looked awkward in editing if it was just a cut, so the morph effect actually hides the fact that he's not doing the right movement. They're gonna do it again on Bam Bam, so I don't know if it's intentional or if it's to mask an error. But anyways, it looks pretty impactful. It's just that it really sticks out the first time I watched it, especially on Bam Bam. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm choking. So, also, we're gonna have a splicing effect because hello sir random extra, hello Jin Young. But wait, first let's look at the cut. As you can see, he's not in the same place. Probably because on the different takes he did not hit the same mark. And so when they just cut without the morphing effect, it looked like he had traveled, like he's here and then he's here. So they added the morphing effect to mask the synchronicity error. Or again, it might be just a flash to emphasize the beat. But if you look, he's here and then he's here. So he's moving. Now the splicing. Splicing is, I don't know if it's an actual, because I've only heard one of my teachers talk about this. So you can tell this is an extra. And then he's gonna get replaced by Jin Young. The splice is the glue. Well, splicing is when editing was done on film, it was the cement. You had to actually stick 2 pieces of film with glue. It's called film cement. And the splicing is that effect. And so in Russian, like early cinema, like Man with a Camera, Battleship Potemkin, stuff like that, they use a lot of editing editing techniques to create meaning, because they did not have sound, and so they create narration with the editing. And so adding something in the splicing is that something is not there here, but it actually appears when you cut. Usually it's meaning, it's like symbolism. In this case it's genuine. He appears in the splicing. And the morph effect. So this cut actually bothered me the first time I watched it, because I only saw the morphing effect and didn't look clean, but it might be completely intentional. This is a super clean cut though. It's a really good cut. I'm just going to slow it down just to appreciate how clean it is. So to get this, it needs to be really choreographed. That means that Bam Bam and all the people behind, these look like extras, have to hit the exact same marks. You can tell it's a cut because the lighting changes. And also because, again, the extras appear in the splicing. There's no one here, and suddenly there are extras. So it's not the same frame, and it's not. And since the lighting changes, I believe that it's not a green screen. Fade to black. And then we have, wait, I'm still, the bookends, which connect to the next video. Now, I don't know if it's done on purpose, that we were supposed to be on the POV of the frame that the breath music video contains, and now the frame is in front of us, even though we can clearly see that the shot is the same. I don't know. Anyways, I thought about something, which is that if Breath was an actual painting in a museum, it would be, very probably, I believe, an Edward Hopper painting. I don't know if this is intentional, but I thought this was a nice reference. I don't know if it's an actual intended reference.